And good day and welcome to the CNBC Africa in Conversation with me, Tania Habimana. In a time where the global economy is facing challenges not seen in the past years, like the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and now geopolitical tensions set to affect the African continent, the question is whether it is a good time for companies to invest on the continent. Joining me now from Dubai is Mesa Group CEO Prateek Suri to answer this. Prateek, welcome to the show. So you have invested on the continent, $100 million, that is your plan. I'd like to firstly, let's start off by understanding a little bit more about your company, what you do, and why Africa.
Okay, thanks for having me here. I'll tell you a brief summary about Mesa Group. We are into consumer electronics manufacturing in the product segment like televisions, audio systems, and white appliances like washing machine, air conditioners, and refrigerators, and many more. So we are supplying in the East Africa and the Western Africa region for last 4 years right now, and we have captured a quite significant market of East Africa, and just recently we started Western African part also. So currently we are trading and exporting it from the Dubai region, and we are also making it happen to make in Africa in coming soon months.
And so if I understand correctly, you're currently trading in East and West Africa. Why those regions particularly?
If I recall my 3 years back when we got a very large quantity of LED televisions, major portion we exported to customers are Africa. And then we did a research in Africa, we found out that major portion went into East Africa region and some portion went to West Africa region. On basis of the statistics and everywhere where our goods got spread out, we realized that East Africa and West Africa together, is a very big market and has a very big potential.
And so getting into those markets, I'd be quite curious to understand what was the economic and the business environment that you encountered?
From the third world country, everyone hears, that Africa is a very big market. It has a very huge potential. It has a very big margin. And, everyone wants to pump into Africa market. But, one must understand the government laws and the laws of the land, because in Africa every places have the different ethics, orientation, and many other things. So before investing into huge part, we have also researched and we have also tried and tested into many areas. After that only we decided to invest in a big sum of value.
What are the other areas that you looked into?
So we basically are looking only into technology sector, where we want to combine with the fintech industry, where we can, provide the extended finance to the consumer and the customers, where people can buy our product in installment and everything. Before doing all these things, we have already tested and tried the market and the consumer base, specifically in the tier 2 and the tier 3 areas. And we have a strong tie-up with the service centers, and we have opened some of the service centers on our own and done the tie-up with other service centers. So we have a great customer satisfaction. And, one thing Mesa is obsessive about is the customer experience and the service. So then, in the future, we plan to launch the fintech application, which provides finance to consumer, for example, 24 months to 36 months.
What about, some of the current affairs and current economic conditions that we're seeing at the moment? We're kind of coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. Did that affect your business in any way on the continent?
Sure, we are facing unprecedented massive slowdown due to pandemic and the global recession. We were also the darling of pandemic crisis like others, but we came out in a more positive way, be it the revenue, profit, or the change the way of the working. Every year, our management and everyone sits and we discuss, how we can restructure our company and how to reduce how to reduce the cost or to increase the cost or to, apply a different idea, all set of ideas to increase the business. For example, I'll give you, before we were planning to open a retail outlets in Africa, we also did in Kenya and some of the places, we gave a franchisee model of small shops where people can buy our products and make, partnership agreement with us. But then we realized, retail cost is 20 times more costlier than distribution center, and distribution center making it is more viable because we can keep the stock in Africa. And, then the customer has an easy access and the distributors have an easy access to buy and sell it, easily to expand the markets.
So then is the franchise model completely out of the way you're operating, or do you still
No,
have certain markets that you're looking into using
no,
that
no, no. It's
market
not
entry?
out completely, but we are not planning to distribute in the entire Africa. We started from Kenya market and we got a couple of retail outlets, small retail outlets where people have taken franchisee and they are running pretty well. I will not say that they are, not running well, but to expand in every part of the region, we need to have a proper planning, because Africa is a big continent and much of it is available for business now. And if you talk about the entire continent, it might take some time, but before that, we see that where we have already made our strength stronger, in certain areas of East Africa, and the certain areas where our strength is not that strong, we will open a distribution center first. And then after that, once we have a proper distribution center and the stock coming in that particular region, then we will be providing the franchisee model.
Okay, okay, that's quite clear. And you mentioned something quite interesting, especially when it comes to the franchise model, is the fact that Africa is not one market. It's several different countries. And also when we're looking at regions, you've got West Africa, East Africa that you're currently present in, Northern Africa, Southern Africa. What are some of the regional differences that you notice with regards to your company's market entry, and also how did consumers react to your product?
Well, I would say, like I said, that Africa, they differ values, ethics, and orientation. And if you talk about our product specifically, then every place has a different taxation rules and everything. If you make in Africa, then it's a different story altogether. But if you talk about importing goods into other countries, some countries you cannot import the finished product. The taxations are so high. Some countries still, like Senegal areas, you still can import the complete units. So what we have done is we have done a tie-up, like for example in Tanzania or Kenya with the factories, or for the OEM model, we provide them the parts and then they assemble and then they make it in our own brand.
Ah, okay, that's quite interesting. So ultimately, in some markets, if I understand correctly, you're going in with your own brand, but in some parts, you've actually opted to provide a sort of franchise model where business owners can manufacture under their own brand. Am I understanding correctly?
No, 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 not on under their own brand, in our brand only. For example, we've taken a place in Tanzania where we can, provide components and everything to the, third party organization who can assemble it on behalf of us, where we are providing the technology and everything. And so after a better understanding, we will be opening our own unit in Tanzania.
I
So
see.
likewise in Kenya
And so
and other places.
at the moment, we have West Africa, we have East Africa. Where are you setting your
Yeah.
eyes on as your next region for growth?
If you talk about, our brand is already registered in most of the portions of OAPI countries right now. As our next target is most of the OAPI countries are still left. So we will be targeting next to OAPI, all the countries together. So we are making a planning and strategy, where we can have a manufacturing unit and the land of our own rather than giving that service to another people and start in a big way.
And
Because
as
eventually the if you talk about televisions where our expertise is, the major component of television is raw material is panel, and we have been trading of this particular raw material in a very huge quantity since last many years.
I see. And as a foreign company entering into the market, how have you experienced competition? I mean, especially as you're in the consumer electronic goods, where you have competition from exports, or from exported goods into the country, or imported goods into the country, as well as local competition. How has that been for you?
Look, competition will exist and persist in every part of the world, whether be it Africa, whether be it India, UAE, everywhere. They're one of the major countries in the world for the manufacturing is China, which is pumping goods into nearly all the places of the world. But one must understand that consumer electronics is not only about the competition and the low price point. One must understand that while pumping goods into the market, the customer satisfaction, customer service, replacement, anything related to warranty is a must to sustain a brand. There are other places in the market which we see, when we bring big amount of stock, like big amount, 100,000 units to the market, other small players are getting 4,000, 5,000 units, and they are just spoiling the market. Eventually they spoil the market, they make losses, and they never return to the market. But for the long term, if you recall in the consumer electronic, how many brands, are successful in Africa? they are, quite few numbers, because only few people are able to, sustain the quality and this particular model.
Yeah, and so, I mean, what some companies have said when entering into the African continent is sometimes the difficulty in, or rather say the challenge in understanding local nuances. Is this something that you experienced?
Yes, of course, like others, we have also experienced the same, but our fundamentals were very clear. We have already tied up with a, very strong local partner who has a very strong connections in logistics and a guidance under them. The guidance which we get as per the laws to understand the laws of the land. We have a legal team in UAE also to, to better understand the laws of Africa. And then it becomes very easier when you have a strong local connection there.
I have to ask you, what's your vision for the African continent? I mean, if you were staring at a magic crystal ball, what would you hope to see?
When we hear in the different part of the world, the new startups, new funding, and the new avenue, which we read in newspaper every day, that, XYZ company has got this much funding, this company has got that much funding. So when I see, consumer electronics, when we started distributing in Africa, we started with the reverse, tier two and tier three rather than tier one places. Then when we saw the response, there is a, young population which are extremely tech savvy. And as other parts of the world like India, where the startups are growing, Africa is the next continent where the startups are growing. And one interesting thing I noticed in Africa is, the number of women startups in Africa is more than the men startup. Although the number of men startup have got more funding from the venture capitalists or the private equity firms. And I was also reading, in the African Development Bank, that the disparity ratio between the funding of male and female in Africa is $42 billion.
Yeah, very true. A very, very interesting point that you raised there. And it's something that we keep talking about on this channel is the fact that we have such a growing number of female founders, yet the funding keeps going to male-led startups. How do you see that? And I actually want to ask my question a little bit differently. How do you see the potential of Africa when it comes to the demographic? The fact that we have a young population that is tech savvy, as you mentioned it. How is that for you, looking at it from an outside perspective?
If we see from the outside, tech savvy means a lot to us, because the next generation, the next decade is about the technology and the artificial intelligence. And with the global economy and technology changing day to day and the new user friendly pocket gadgets across the world, it would be foolish to exclude Africa as a whole market mix. And today, we have so many opportunities in the palm of our hand. And today, doing business is no longer very the rich and mighty. And all and sundry willing to do business is all thanks to the world of technology. And Africa is being the developing place more. It might be the maximum population of the tech savvy people. I have personally interacted with so many tech people, which are doing technology work for, at least half price in the other parts of the world, and they are brilliant.
And what we've also seen on the continent, and I'm quite interested to get your take on this, is a lot of companies coming to leverage and make use of Africa's talent pool. So you see organizations that are basically training developers, working with local developers. Is this something that you're looking into?
Yes, of course, the next future is the Internet of Things and the artificial intelligence. So I'll give you a short example also, the 40% of the world's Internet of Things IoT market will come from the developing countries, and this which will bring the new infrastructure, development to those particular countries as a part of development program. And we are already witnessing the same in Africa market. Also, another example, interesting example, I was reading a graph where a median of about 50% say, a median of 50% is a high, that the development of artificial intelligence or the advancement of technology is a good thing for the society, while the others disagree. And, which will come from the developing market, and Africa is one of the largest continent for the developing market.
And another part, how are you looking into skills transfer and seeing how you can create bilateral collaboration between Dubai, where you're based, and the African continent, and maybe other regions where you have operations?
In Dubai, we have a finance office. So we control finance from Dubai. But if you talk about Africa, you have to sit in Africa, you have to have a team in Africa. You cannot control remotely from Dubai and distribute all the goods in such a big volume in Africa. So we have a team in Kenya, we have a team in Tanzania, we are building a team in Nigeria region. So slowly we will be building everywhere team, and it has to be the local people out there. Or you can hire a 10 or a 20% of the international people out there, but it has to be local.
Yeah, absolutely. So that also means that we'll be seeing you here very soon as well, I hope. But moving on, I also would like to, I'd also like to get your take on the time that we are in now. I mean, we're looking at an economy that has just undergone COVID-19. We're looking at geopolitical tensions. We're looking at some nations are, there's fears of stagflation, rising inflation all around the world, supply chain disruptions. Is it really the right time to invest on the African continent?
Look, let's just generalize this question, African continent and the entire world. Africa is the developing place. There are many developed countries also. The global recession is a global phenomenon. It does not only relate to Africa, it relates to the entire world. So, what is global recession in simple words for the viewers? It's just economic slowdown or the slow economic output. So the global recession appeared highly synchronized internationally with the severe financial and economic disruptions around the world. So if you talk about major key points, despite recession, if I want to invest in the Africa, the major key points will be the high investment rate, which everyone knows in the market, and everyone from the third place you will hear the same things, high profitability and the availability of the raw material like gold and minerals. I see in Dubai, a major portion of gold is coming from Ghana and other places from the refinery, and people are refining it in Dubai and selling it across the world. So Africa constitutes a major portion of gold, and gold is a very stable commodity and which holds the value. And another point would be the flexible government and relative stable government. Like if you see in the other countries, Africa still has a relative stable government, and the demand of the consumer demand and the digital acceptance which I have seen in the Africa market, it's tremendous. Be it Instagram or any other social media channel, the way African people has accepted the digital transformation, it's tremendous, which brings
Yeah.
the more scope in the market.
Very, very true. We see very high levels of digital adoption on the continent, and as well a lot of innovation in that regard. And I'm quite curious to understand: do you see, or how do you see the potential for partnerships potentially with African companies, African startups? How do you see this?
Before, you need to have a strong partner, whether a partner exists in the books as a shareholder or whether it appears to be partner as an agreement. A partner means a simple whom you're doing business with. Like we have a local partner there in Africa who guides us in every step of logistics, to warehousing, to finance, and to the collection of payments and to the default of payments. So partnership is very important when you are from the outside world and doing business in some other country. But you should have a correct partnership that also depends upon your experience and the way you have done business and the growth.
And let's talk about that $100 million investment. I mean, it's going into the West African region. What is that investment going into specifically?
So, $100 million was a split between East and West Africa entirely together. And the investment part was into three phases. One was the industrial project where we are planning to take a land where we have already discussed in Nigeria with the government officials that to allot the land for us. And the eastern part, where Tanzania and Kenya we consider at to building a factory. Then after that, like I told you, the fintech industry, which we are very keen, and we have seen the fintech startups in Nigeria massively raised funding. And I've been personally touched with many of the fintechs CEO who has raised, Series B and Series C more than 100 million to $300 million. How Messer Group can integrate the application with them and how we can, extend the finance to the customers for 24 months or 36 months. When we do a survey, it's a general, common sense that anyone who would get 24 months installment for a television will never buy a television in cash. So, but at the same time, we also need to spend on the research and development. We cannot just lend money like this. So, how to understand in Africa, how the KYC and everything is done, that legal team is already doing. So these are the phases. And the other phase is the distribution center, which we are planning to open in OAPI regions in the starting, because there we are not planning to open a retail outlets. So yeah, like this, we will be investing.
And so, with the loan structure that you've just mentioned now, with regards to basically allowing a consumer to purchase a product and pay over 12 or 24 months, where are you in the process of setting that up, and what do you see as the anticipated return on investment for yourself?
Okay, so we already have opened an investment firm in Dubai 3 months back, and we are planning to open a subsidiary firm. We are already in touch with the officials in many parts of the Africa market. So now we just need to, establish it legally because, it's a financial process. There are regulations involved in different parts of Africa, different regulations. It's not same all across the Africa. So, we are trying to understand, and then we will integrate the one application to entire Africa. That is what our plan is. It might take time. It might start from some countries in the starting. For example, the retail outlet which are already opened in Kenya. We have already given them leverage because they've been working with us since 3 years. So, the model will start from them. But if you talk about single point of application which is accessible from entire Africa, or you may say major part of Africa, it's going to take little time, maybe a 6 months down the line, because we are already understanding the laws of the land.
So relatively soon, I hear. But something that keeps coming up in your talk that I'm picking up on is the notion of your local partners and the fact that you have a local team here. How was it for you finding that local partner?
That's also an interesting question. So, when 4 years back, as I told you, we exported 70% of the goods from UAE, and it eventually went to the Africa market, and we did not know that which part of the Africa it was going. Then eventually, when the customer contacted us, and through, the channel created, and then, like this, people are using LinkedIn and the other channels where we contacted, and luckily we got a very good channel, very good people with us who partnered with us, and we have tied up most of the companies which are very big, which already have a presence in the market, and we have done the background check. There are certain companies in Dubai which do the background check and everything, and based on that, we have done partnerships,
And will
and
you
our
continue?
experience is extremely good. Other people still tells me, how you are able to do business in Africa. It's been 3 years. We heard that, it's not easy to do business in Africa. It's very unsafe, this and that. It's all bullshit. If I see, other places of the world, everywhere, safe or the unsafe, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. You need to know, your limits and everything. You need to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to say I like your stance on this, is that the risks are the same. Whichever part of the world you're doing business in, the risks are the same. You do background checks, you do due diligence, but you move forward.
Yes.
Would you continue with this strategy going into the next regions on the continent, or maybe have you learned some
Yes, yes.
lessons?
Yes, yes, of course. Like I said, we already, why I was telling you 6 months down the line, we will be starting with one point of application because different places have different laws of land. But now we have already funds in place to invest in Africa for this particular business model for giving installment to customer. But the legal structure, once it is ready, it will be very easier. The background of the application by the tech, another interesting thing, the application has been developed from Africa region. It's not developed from America or any other region. The African tech developers have developed the application. We have still not launched it, but it's an achievement for us also, and it feels good that entire application has been done by the local population.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. And looking at the business today, what would you say to other foreign companies that are looking to invest on the continent? What would you have to share to them?
It turns out to be in 2020 that Africa, more of Africa rather than China or any place of the world. Over the years, Africa is known derogatively as a dark continent, while colonialism and the general ignorance of our African people have skewed perceptions completely. And Africa is a very huge market, and much of it is available already for the business. And if you talk about America or any major part of the world, everyone has a plan to do some business, some part in Africa region.
And what would you say to those investors that say that Africa is too expensive to do business in because you spend a lot of time and effort on due diligence, that it's complicated, that there's a lot of red tape, corruption, those kind of things?
Look, it's the same thing. If Africa is expensive for due diligence and understanding the process, but in the other part of the world which are already developed, there are other things which are very, very expensive. The rentals and the everything to set up the business and other parts are very, very expensive. So, it's almost the same thing, or, there is hardly any difference. It's just the process which is different in the developed place. It's the process which is different in developing place. People who do hard work and try to understand how to crack the business in this particular region can earn money. And we are
Absolutely.
already doing it, and it's not that we are new, that it's only been 1 year or 2 years, we've crossed third year. Last year, we crossed revenue of, the Mesa Group has crossed already $450 million revenue. And, more than 50% is coming from the Africa market.
That's
So I
brilliant.
keep telling, I keep telling people, that whenever people say that we feel scared if we give stock to someone and they don't pay us, so I keep telling them, it's not as simple as that. You bring stock in Africa and just give it to anyone in the market. You need to do the due diligence. There are certain steps to be followed, in every part of the business.
What are you looking forward to the most in closing when it comes to the African continent? What is exciting you the most?
Exciting, of course, high investment rate. It's something which excites me. And recently I was reading the McKinsey data. Household consumption, by 2025 in Africa will reach, 2.1 trillion dollar, and the business spending $3.5 trillion. So the combination is more than $6 trillion. you know and for most Africans, I have seen in the tier one places that they are very, very brand loyal. 58% of the consumers, if you talk about, and the city dwellers account for more consumption of such products. And the repeat orders, I have seen Africans, they prefer, the brand loyalty, and they will not just jump into the new brand, if the price is 20% cheaper or something. The market is now very, very educated. It's not the same Africa which people used to think 10 years back. It's changed.
Indeed, it has changed. And that's such an important point that you raised there, brand loyalty. And it's so true that on the continent, the opportunity for being able to actually lock in a consumer, to gain that brand loyalty, to gain that brand, that relationship with consumers is ripe. It's all there for the taking. Prateek Suri, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a wonderful conversation. And I feel like the next conversation really needs to be about brand loyalty and how foreign companies can come in and make a mark as early on as today. That was the Mesa Group CEO, Prateek Suri, joining us in conversation. Make sure that you stay tuned and continue the conversation on social media. You'll find us with the hashtag CNBC Africa.